Hello and welcome to the Wolves Report. I'm Ryan Lester and thank you for joining us for episode 47. We just about got our team together, a few behind the scenes issues, but delighted to be joined by Nocky and Tyler, who are looking very festive with his Lopetegui neck, polar neck, Christmas tree in the background, and we've got positive Nocky as ever, and of course, I can't believe that, Merry Christmas. We're going to talk about today the Gillingham analysis, if we can, a bit of a strange game, the task ahead for Lopetegui, the January transfer window, Matheus Cunha, hopefully he signs, your questions and looking ahead to Everton. I was sat with Tyler on Tuesday night where it finished Wolves 2, Gillingham 0. Tyler, what was your take on that game?
It's one of those games, it sounds a bit daft, you can't win, can you really? If we'd have won 5 or 6-0, it's to be expected. If we get knocked out, it's the end of the world. And I think it was sort of somewhere in the middle, really. Fully in control of the game, as you'd expect, and as you'd want us to be. There was a bit flying around after the game, words like abysmal and I think disgraceful was one I saw, and I thought that was a bit harsh, to be honest. I thought we managed the game well. I mean, at times they were a 6-3-1, weren't they? And like you said, Ryan, during the game, any professional outfit that's well drilled enough to do that, they're going to be hard to break down, especially a Wolves side that doesn't create a lot of chances normally, that is bereft of confidence. In the end, they got the job done. I thought first half, we could have been going in 3 or 4-0 up. I mean,
without playing that well.
Without playing well, Hodges missed a sitter, we hit the post. Martinho's touch let him down when he was clear. Costa's header could have gone in on another day, and Neves put the free kick just wide. So you're right, we didn't really play well or do anything, but could have easily been 4 or 5. I thought Bueno was an obvious highlight first half, getting to the byline, whipped a couple of lovely balls in, and it's like I said, it's just that striker, isn't it, which I'm sure we'll come on to get on the end of them, really. The subs I liked, I thought were positive. You know, we were talking at half-time, and I said to you, Ryan, there's no reason to not go 4-2-3-1 here. If he's ever going to do it, he's got to do it now, and fair play, he did it. So it's nice to see a more proactive manager make the changes. I think all the changes had an impact. Wang, Raul, Adama I'd have probably liked to see a bit more of, but you made a good point. You know, you got some good balls in as well. So I think all in all, it was, you know, pretty positive. I've got more positive than negatives, and I suppose for me that's a first, really. But yeah, I thought some of the criticism was fair because, like I said at the start, it's one of those games you can't win wherever you do. So I came away pretty happy in the end.
Yeah, Nocky, I think most people, you could look at that. You see Gillingham, the bottom of League 2, Wolves, a Premier League side. Everyone's saying, I mean, the maths, the homework, the paperwork says 4, 5, 6-0. Thanks very much, job done. But football doesn't always work that way. Now, Wolves probably weren't as creative as we would like in the final third, but it was total dominance. So just going on from what Tyler said, what was your take on the performance?
Similar to Chris, really. I think it's one of them games you want an early goal. If you get an early goal, you bring them out. They have to play, they have to be a little bit more ambitious, and you get in space behind them, which is what we found when we did get that opener. But the best will in the world. I mean, it's two teams in absolutely no form. We've been away for 6 weeks. They've still been playing, so you would expect them to be a little bit fresher than us. And I don't think it really matters who you are. If you're playing pretty much 10 across the edge of your own penalty area, how are you supposed to break them down? It doesn't matter what kind of flair players you've got. There's no space in behind. You can't hit them down the flanks. You can't play through them because every time they did get the ball, it was a case of trying to lump it all the way at the other end of the field, reset and go again. They came to try, A, not to get hammered, and B, to see if they could take it to penalties. So there were some things I think we could have done better. I don't think Guedes had a particularly good game, but then there was no spacing for him to play. But it's just one of them games. A win's a win. You know, Lopetegui's first game, he's got to win. He's got a clean sheet. We're into the quarterfinals of the Cup. So I find it hard to find too many things to moan about, in all honesty. They were a team, they were never going to hurt us. I mean, there was no part of me ever thought that we were going to concede a goal. But it's two teams that don't score goals, both in trouble in their respective divisions. And sometimes you've just got to win the football match, however it comes. And as I said, if we get the early goal, we'd probably go on and win that. We're probably 3-4 up by half time, in all honesty, because they kind of collapsed when we did get that opener. But the longer it takes to get that first goal, the more confident they get. They've got something to hold on to. But I always felt we would get through. It was a case of when, really, rather than if.
Yeah.
Well, they had a proven game plan, because I know they scored at Brentford. I think they had one shot at Brentford in the last round they scored. Only takes one shot to score a goal. The game plan worked. They took Brentford to penalties and they went through. The game plan was similar. It was frustrating. It did always feel like it was a matter of time. I mean, I sat with Chris watching the game and I didn't really feel like it was ever in danger. I always felt like the goal would come.
There's one thing I've got to raise, though.
Oh, no.
There's two things I've got to raise. Right? Firstly, I took my lad and we moved to the North Bank and we sat on the front row, which is by far the worst seats in the entire Premier League. Knees around my head. There's absolutely my lad's 8 and he had no leg room. And secondly, I went to get a pie, and you know I'm a fan of a pie.
I knew this was coming.
Cheese and bacon burger pie with gherkins. I genuinely, I nearly walked out. I was absolutely horrified by what I was seeing, but that's by the by. Other than that, it was a good afternoon, but they need to sort that out as a shambles.
Food exclusives from former chef Mark Knock on the Wolves Report podcast. Going back to the football and away from Knocker's anger, Tyler, it's hard to pull positives because you're expecting to beat that team. I know people get pulled in sometimes, often I do myself, but it's not Championship Manager. You don't just play a League Two side and smash them because it's there, because they're still human, they're still footballers, they've got a point to prove. They've beaten the Premier League team already in this cup, so they had a tactic that worked for a long part of the game, even though there were no threat. But in terms of positives, you mentioned Bueno. I thought there was some fantastic balls put into the box, particularly in the first half from him.
Yeah, he looks a fine, doesn't he? And I think he's a converted, is it number 10 or wide forward? And you can see that part. I mean, there was a couple of times he, one-on-one faced up to the defender, beating comfortably, almost a Dharma-like, really, with just, getting around him and whipping the ball in. And it's not an average cross. We're all used to Wolves under-hitting crosses, over-hitting crosses. They're whipped in with pace. They're great delivery. Like I said earlier, we just need to get somebody on the end of them. So he was an obvious highlight. I thought Neves was his usual self, looked like he'd never been away. It's hard, like I said, it's hard to judge it too much, but the one thing I kept saying to you is we just need to move the ball quicker. We're so slow on the ball in midfield, and with that 3 in there, I was pulling my hair out at times because we're taking, and I don't know if it's a confidence thing, but it probably is, but we're taking 3 or 4 touches when we could take 1 and 2. And I think you highlighted Costa's taken a lot of stick, but he made some excellent runs first half. Never got picked out once because we're not quick enough with the heads on up. It's only Podence, and again, he got criticism. He's the only one who's probably trying to do it or that's on a similar wavelength. I think we're still far too safe in possession, which we've talked about before. So that was the biggest thing for me. But I think that will come with confidence, with time. Once they start believing a bit more in the new manager, hopefully we'll start to see those 1-2s and that quicker movement.
You're listening and watching to the Wolves Report with Chris Tyler, Mark Knock and myself, Ryan Lester, currently discussing and trying to analyse the Gillingham game. The show is recorded live, so your comments via YouTube or Facebook, put them on, questions. We had some questions put on via Twitter, as you usually do over the last few days, so we'll get those answered later on. So the show is live. Please join in. Your contribution, discuss, debate, insults, most of it's welcome. So yeah, thank you for watching and joining us so far. As Tyler mentioned then, Nocky, Daniel Podence. Now, this is someone that really splits the pack. Now, I always stick up for Podence, but I'd expect more against the bottom of League Two. However, this is a player that doesn't shy away. He will always try that thing that's quite often frustrates. But if you're playing against 2 banks of 5, sometimes a line of 6 and then a 3 in front, it's sometimes going to take a little bit of magic or a penalty to open that team up, because it's a professional team regardless. It's really hard to break down. Now, people say, it's Gillingham, that shouldn't be that excuse. Well, I think it's a partial excuse, because they did a job on some good professionals, albeit some ones who haven't got confidence. So is the stick that Podence is getting fair, Nocky?
I'm a big Podence fan, but he did really frustrate me in that game. Not because he was trying things, but he was trying things kind of up a blind alley. He was just flicking the ball for the sake of flicking the ball, as opposed to trying to pick somebody out. Where I think when you're in a game like that, sometimes just keeping it simple, the extra bit of quality you've got, that eventually you're going to find a way through. So he was a bit of a frustrating afternoon for him. But we've seen Wolves do it. I mean, we've got up to Man City a few years ago and we sat and we dug in and we we made it ugly, we made it horrible, and we managed to win the game. We've done it in a few games, because that's, if there is a lack of quality in terms of yourselves compared to your opponents, you're not going to go gung-ho because you get ripped to pieces. So I don't think they did anything wrong. I'm all for that tactic. If that's the way you've got to win a football match, that's what you've got to do. But I think it probably wasn't the right game for Pedence. I thought Hwang looked good when he came on. I thought he was the better of the two. He won the penalty, he had the assist for the goal. So he had a little bit more pace, and he was more willing to drive forward and drive at them, I think, which is something that Pedence doesn't always do.
Just more direct, really.
More direct.
Not overcomplicating it.
No, if Pedence beats a player, he generally, because he's cut back and then he's dropped a shoulder and dropped backwards, he doesn't really run at people and skip past them. He's not that sort of player. Whereas
quick feet
Wang
usually.
was putting them under pressure, he was running at them and he was committing them, and that was what we needed. You need pace. If you're going to break down a side like that, you need pace. And I think in the first half, although we had full control of the ball, because we had the control of the ball inside their half, there's absolutely no space to work. And I think Pedence was getting frustrated, but a lot of us were getting frustrated with him because he was just trying things that it wasn't the right time or place to do for me.
Something that, just picking up that you mentioned earlier on as well, Tyler, and Rick O'Shea mentioned it as well when we talked about it. Good in-game management by the Lop, and I totally agree. This is a guy. Yes, it's a League Two side, but it's his first game. How often have we seen a game going wrong and the manager watch it for 20 minutes in the second half? He didn't like what he saw. He made a change. He went from 4-3-3. Hodge was probably a little bit unlucky because I thought he was a bit better than Matinho that first half. But it went from 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1, Pedence in the 10, and Wolves looked a little bit better. We didn't quite get the goal then. I think we had to go again to 4-4-2. But isn't it refreshing to see a manager take control and before it gets too late, make a positive change? Being proactive over being reactive, Tyler?
Yeah, and I think obviously we went 4-4-2 for a spell, didn't we, with Costa and Jimenez, and I think that's all you want as a fan. If you sort of sit there and you're watching the same thing over and over again, not change it. We've talked about that a lot with Large, didn't we? And if nothing else, it seems like he's got things in his locker to change it. He played 3 at the back in a friendly. He's played 3 different formations on Tuesday night. He's obviously not scared to change it. He'll expect the players to be able to adapt and work to whatever his demands are. And I think if you don't, then you might not be around too much longer, to be honest. But it was refreshing to see. When did we last have 2 up front? Crikey, Bull and Much, wasn't it? Probably in our generation.
We were all at school, weren't we?
It's a bit old school, but it was that dynamic. Well, what can we do here? We've tried the number 10, like Nocky said. We've tried Wang, being more direct. Let's try the 2 lads up top. And in the end, it obviously paid off. But yeah, that's certainly a positive for me, that it looks like we've got a coach or a manager that can see what's happening in front of him and can do something about it if he's not working. But of course, it is early days. Absolutely
great comment from Rick O'Shea. As mentioned earlier on, the show is recorded live, so your comments via Facebook or YouTube, we can get them on, get them involved and raise points like that. Yeah, so thank you for your contribution, Rick. Nocky, just going back to Bueno, how hard now going forward does it look like he's going to be to take out the team? Because I don't recall so far, is it 6 games for Wolves now, maybe 7? I don't recall a poor game yet. I think in every game he's looked quite accomplished. I think one game he's playing against Saka, who was playing a really good player, a decent player at the World Cup, and he's hardly given him a kick in that game. So Bueno, he looks, and you've got to thank Steve Davis. He's taking the confidence to put him in. So yeah, a star for the future, but a star for now as well.
Yeah, I think he's one of the first names of the team sheet at the moment. He's earned his place and he's keeping his shirt. And there's a part of me that thinks maybe do we see Aït-Nouri get pushed into a more attacking position now because he's not automatically going to get into there and play as a wide in the 3. Maybe he's an option because he does look good going forward. But Bueno just does the simple stuff really well. If he's in a position to cross, he crosses. If he's not, he'll cut back and play it off to one of his teammates. He's just a very good player and he's quick enough and he doesn't really get beat either. I mean, he's still young, he's still raw. There's been a couple of times where his positional sense has been slightly suspect and he's been caught out, but he's quick enough to get himself back and get a foot in. So yeah, I'm a big fan of his. I think he's been one of the shining stars this season.
What I would say to that though is we've got a manager now that likes to play really narrow throughout the team, but likes to get the fullbacks up high. So I think we can expect our fullbacks to be allowed to get caught out of position because we're trying to overload, aren't we, high up the pitch? So I would expect them to get caught out. But if you've got 3 across midfield and it's Matheus Nunes and Boubacar Traoré either side, you'd expect to have the legs and the cover. Yeah, but I'm excited. But the there was the ball he put across at Crystal Palace for the Adama header. There was more of that cross didn't look like a fluke. He's got that lovely, not floated, not blasted, but that perfectly whip about the cross, and it just lands in the 6-yard area. So excited to see more of that. Tyler, is there any more positives, or is the main positives that it's a clean sheet and Wolves are in the quarter-final of the Cup?
Yeah, I think that's probably about it. I thought, like you said, I agree with you on Hodge. I thought he was, unless he had a knock, I thought he was unlucky to be sacrificed at half-time. He had a couple of lovely little touches, didn't he, in the first half. And like, yeah, fair play to Knocker. I think we all sort of, cringe at the time of Steve Davis in charge, don't we, if we look back on it now. But Bueno and Hodge are two obvious finds that you think, well, they look like players, don't they? And like I said, it's early days and you don't want to get too excited, but they both look really good. My main concern, I suppose, is as strong as we are in the left-back area, the right-back area is, for me, a real issue, because Semedo, for me, looked miles off it. And again, whether it's a form thing, a confidence thing, he didn't want to get past the halfway line and he didn't want to take, Gillingham players on. And I think we've got a real problem there. And I know there's links to Wan-Bissaka and maybe others, but that for me is an alarming area where he's just fell off a cliff, hasn't he? As you guys know, I've never been his biggest fan, but his levels have dropped drastically. So I think that is you asked for positives and I'll finish with a negative.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a big concern. But as with most of these players, there's a footballer in there. Semedo, for parts of, his first season wasn't great, but his second season, there was parts of that when he wasn't getting skinned, he was bringing the ball forward, and he looked a complete footballer. For me, as with many of these players, I do believe it's a lot about confidence. Will he get a chance to improve his confidence if Wan-Bissaka, who, to be honest, looked pretty good for Man United last night, if Wan-Bissaka is available for 25 million, he wants to come, I think that's an absolute no-brainer. Is that a bit of smart work to give Johnny and Semedo a bit of a boot? I don't know, but at the moment I agree with you guys. I think it's a bit of a concern. Now, Bobby Smith's just put in a stinker of a question. I'm going to put it up because it's horrible, and there's no right or wrong here, but great to have a League Cup run for once. I'm in the minority, but I would rather see Wolves win the Cup and get relegated than stay up. What is it? Football is not about glory, about winning trophies. It's a stinker, isn't it? I know you guys are split on this. Now, I know you won't believe it with all my grey hair, but I have never seen Wolves win a major trophy. I was, I believe, about 8 months old when Wolves won the League Cup. So forgive me for not remembering that, but my dad was there, and I think probably all our dads were at that game as well, in that the Andy Gray, Peter Shilton final. Tyler, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, obviously me and Nocky disagree on this, don't we?
It's a great debate, though. Thank you, Bobby Smith, for your question. This is what we're here for.
And I think there's no right or wrong answer. It's what means more to you. I suppose I just think of the years where I've spent however many hundreds of pounds doing however many miles to get out of divisions. You want to be in the Premier League. It's the biggest and the best league in the world. And if you're not in it, I think you miss it out. And I think that's where you just have to be in it these days. And for me, it's about being in the top division. Would I love Wolves to win a trophy? Of course I would. But if you're offering me one of the two, winning the League Cup or staying in the league, I'm staying in the league all day long.
Nocky, your take on that?
I want a cup. I want a cup, simple as that. I think league football, obviously you want to be in the Premier League, you're absolutely right, Chris, that's the league to be in, but it's not like we're not going to follow them if they do drop back to the Championship. We'll still be there, and I just think the opportunity to see your team lift a trophy, we've all got mates who are Blues fans who'll still talk about that win against Arsenal in the cup final, and those are the memories that you take with you. And if you think about the memories that you've got at Wolves, a lot of your highlights are from the lower leagues. That's where we've all come from. So the opportunity to see Wolves lift a trophy, to experience that, to be at Wembley. We were all there when we blew that lead to Watford, and you knew how close you were. I just think the chance to see your team lift a trophy is just an absolutely unbelievable experience. And I saw us in the Sherpa van when we won that, and that was a fantastic day. So the chance to win a League Cup, I'd take your hand off for that. If it was that and relegation, I think I'm taking it. I've got to be honest.
That's what.
And it's all about opinions, and this is why we do these shows live, to get questions like Bobby's coming in, because it creates debate. It's a really good debate. I don't know how I feel about it. I'm desperate. Before my time's up, I just want to see Wolves win a trophy. But if you win that trophy and you get relegated, the amount of time we spent out of the Premier League in my lifetime, we might never go back. And so, I mean, I don't know who's barking there. It's certainly not me. But oh no, it's not. But anyway, Nocky's dog wrecked the sofa earlier today, but we'll talk about that a bit later. Bobby Smith, thank you for your contribution there. So, Chris Cooper, let's go through a few of these comments. Chris Cooper says, "I really believe this will be the best transfer window since Fosun took over." Tyler,
I want some of what he's having. I think we're going to come on to obviously the job that Lopetegui's got, and for me, it's enormous. I've said it however many times on this podcast. I just don't think the players we've got are as good as we think they are, and other people might think they are that aren't, close to Wolves. I think if you take Neves out of that team, I think they're all genuinely replaceable. I don't think anyone's indispensable to that side, and that's not a good thing, is it? And there's been talk of up to 5, up to 6 players. It's needed. It's just how quickly can he bed them in and get them performing from day one, which is what he needs to do. And I hope Chris is right. So I think it's a huge window, and I think there's a lot of maybe exits to come as well. I think Johnny's days are done. Ronan, it seems, will be leaving. Can we keep Jimenez, Hwang, and Costa on the books with Cunha coming in? Who knows? But I think there'll be a few outgoings as well, and maybe a couple of surprises. But I'd like to think he's right. It's a huge window, isn't it? And the only promising thing is it looks like we're getting it done early. We can't afford to wait till the end of January because we could be down by then.
Absolutely. This is. I've read this in the background. This just really tickled me. Bobby Smith again. Geddes is a player who has currently the skill of Keith Downing and attacking ability of Robbie Dennison. I mean, I hope Robbie doesn't watch the show. He'll be deeply offended, and I'm not telling Keith Downing anything. So, Geddes needs to improve massively. Thank you for the comments. As I said before, this is episode 47 of the Wolves Report. Chris Tyler, Mark Knock, and myself, Ryan Lester. The show is recorded live. Please keep your comments coming in. As Tyler mentioned then, can talk about now the task that our new manager faces in keeping Wolves in division. For me, if you offer me 17th now, that's a successful season. At the start of the season, that will be seen as terrible. But Premier League survival is absolutely everything. And I can't see how... I can't see how. I believe we'll do it. I believe we've got the right man to get the best out of the players we've got. And not the war chest, because that's a very sort of 90s saying, isn't it, in terms of the Jack Haywood and Jack Walker eras of pumping money into their teams. But there is money to spend, and I do think Wolves will be okay. But what kind of a task has he got, Nocky? It's because the bookies now have got us more likely to go down than not in comparison to other teams around us. So how big is this task? Are we underestimating it?
No, I don't think we are. It's a ginormous task to keep us in this division. I mean, you've got to turn a team who haven't scored goals really for 3-4 years into a team that are fluid goal scorers, and that's not easy to do. I do think there'll be signings. I think they'll back in with 5 or 6, but I do think there'll be some big players going the other way. I think Semedo will go. I wouldn't be surprised if Guedes didn't go. A couple of the others that might just catch us out and surprise us. But it's a ginormous job because we are, at the moment, we are the worst team in this division, despite league status, goals scored, chances created. We're dismal. So the only 2 teams we've managed to beat are directly above us. So clearly we're in a sticky spot. We're not good enough to win football matches. A lot of it, I think, is confidence. I think if we could get a couple of wins, you'd see things turn around pretty quick, I think. But you can see the difference in quality when Neves plays compared to everybody else. I mean, that's not just a player in form. That's a player that's head and shoulders above anybody else in that squad. And I agree with the comment Chris made earlier. The players aren't quite as good as we think they are, especially going forward. I think those players are nowhere near the standard that we want them to be. I think the signings that we brought in, some of them were questionable anyway, signing a player with cruciate injury before you've even put him on the pitch. And I think the price for Guedes, a player who no one else has moved on. Núñez is showing signs that he's going to start finding a little bit of form, but the job itself is ginormous because it's the mentality issue of it, really. The players are so used to losing football matches now, and getting them out of that, getting a fresh start, I don't think we can underestimate how big the Everton game is. I think if we lose that game, you can almost start writing the obituary for me, but if we can get a result out of that, maybe we see things turn around. But it's probably the biggest job in the Premier League at the moment in terms of task.
Yeah, it's huge, Chris. Would you agree with that, Chris? Or
I've got nothing to add to that. He's nailed it. Everything he said is spot on, and It's enormous. I think the only thing to add on, I just touched upon, is the pace he's got to get up to speed to do the job.
Yeah.
Everyone said he's had, the World Cup break. That's irrelevant for me. Yeah, he's had a chance to have a look at a couple of players, but he's got Everton away, like Knocker says, on what, I don't even know what day of the week it is. It Christmas week, isn't it? But Boxing Day.
Monday afternoon.
I don't know. What day is it today? Thursday. I think it's just huge, isn't it? That's the sticking point for me. You're obviously quite confident, Rod. For me, it's how quickly will he be able to, like Knocker said, change the mentality, change the focus. That's the concern for me. If that takes him 4 or 5 games, like Knocker said, we're probably done by then. He hasn't got any time whatsoever. So Everton and Man U, 4 points required minimum.
Oh, I'd take a win and a loss from those games. I'd win at Everton. I think. I don't really want 2 draws. I mean, we're not got 10, 15 games left. There's a lot of games left. So we have a little bit of slack, but we need that bounce, that new manager bounce. Now, whether that's, if we're going to Everton and it's a disgusting 0-0, I don't really want that. I want to go and win at Everton because I think, actually, although the table says otherwise, I think they're under more pressure at us at home. Their manager's under fire, whereas we're looking up because we're excited about our new manager. Everton are looking at their manager and they're like, we're not sure about him. But we'll talk about the Everton game in a bit. In terms of the task ahead, as I mentioned at the start, I'm taking 17th and taking 17th right now. Chris Cooper, I'm going for us to win the cup and to stay up. That is the Christmas spirit, Chris, that we're after on the Wolves report. So yeah, we'll all absolutely take that. Whether I know sometimes I'm criticised for being negative or harsh, sometimes for being over positive, but I do genuinely believe that Wolves will stay up. There's not a lot of science behind that, maybe a lot more love, but I do believe in the manager. Wolves have finally got their guy they wanted 6-7 years ago, a fantastic manager with a track record of improving young players as he's won under 21 trophies, managing one of the biggest teams in the world, managing one of the biggest national teams. Already worked with some of these players and with money to spend. I'm very confident. I'm hoping I'm spreading some positivity because that needs to spread into the stands as well. So it's a massive task, but we have to believe and back them. So I hope you enjoyed my Christmas speech, boys. It's amazing what a glass of port after work can do for the positivity. Tyler, are Wolves going to stay up this season?
Christ. I've got no idea, mate. I'm a glass half empty type of guy normally. The only one thing we've got, and you've just touched upon it, is we've got an elite manager. That's the only hope I've got. But I do look at these players and I just don't think they're good enough. I genuinely don't think they're good enough. And like Nocky said, we're bottom of the league for a reason. The table doesn't lie. We've won 2 all season for a reason. We're not good enough. I personally fear for us, if I'm being honest. I'd love to be wrong, but I do fear for us.
It's the answer I was expecting, but it wasn't as bad as I thought. Nocky.
I genuinely don't know. I mean, we're at Christmas and we've won 2 games. I know the World Cup's affected.
It's not technically the Boxing Day rule though, because we're 5 or 6 games behind that.
Yeah,
and we've not got 10 games to go. And I genuinely believe. I mean, I don't think it matters if we win or lose or draw at Everton. It's not the end of the season if that happens. It's a massive game. But I do believe Wolves will be okay, Nocky. And I'm trying to sell it because I can see you guys aren't really buying into that just yet. And Tyler's been drinking all day, and I thought he'd at least say, yes, we're going to be fine.
It's hard to know, isn't it? It's hard to. I want to sit here and say, yeah, of course we will, but there's no evidence to suggest that we will.
The elite manager, as we said.
Yeah, it's so hard to answer. It's so hard to answer because until you've seen us play, until you've seen how he's going to set us up and how the players are going to react, it's difficult. I mean, if you look at the transfer window I think we'll have and the manager we've got in place, then yes, I think we'll stay up. But it's going to be how quick they can adapt because there is absolutely no room for error. We have to hit the ground running. If we go into that Everton game and get beat and then we get done by Man United, we're off to the Villa. They owe us one, don't they? And you know how they feel.
One.
You lose that one, then you're probably 6 or 7 points adrift. And I think
it's a big gap then. That's a big gap.
It's a big gap now when you look at the current form, but I think we can stay up. I think he can keep us up purely because of who he is. I think he's got that pull. I think we'll bring players in. I think we'll spend some money because I think Fosun know it's catastrophic if Wolves get relegated. So I do think we'll stay up, but I'm very much 51% will stay up.
I'll take that. We're absolutely 1% in the positive. I'm saying we're staying up. Tyler doesn't know, so 2-1 voted. Wolverhampton Wanderers are staying up. You heard it first here on the Wolves Report, episode 47. But there is no way a manager of his quality, his pedigree, a European trophy, managing the biggest sides, there's no way he's not coming if he doesn't believe he's going to get backed, and if he can't believe he's going to stay up. So if a man who's forgotten more about football than us three will ever know, if he believes that, then I believe it as well. I'm delighted he's here now. He seems like a good bloke. When he talks, you want to listen to him. He's got that likability. He's got a presence. I mean, I've got to be honest, Tyler was purring about his coat and the way he was marching around the technical area in the game. Look at Tyler. I've never seen Tyler so much in love with the manager. So
I've dusted this wrong. I've worn this for about 5 years, but I've just dusted it. You can tell how smooth they look. You know, he's a good man. He's just going to be good, isn't he?
Do we know if has he got a relegation release clause?
That I don't know. I would imagine.
We were getting excited then, Knocker.
Nice one, Knocker.
It'd be interesting to know, because if he has, then how confident actually is he, or has he took it because he thinks if he goes, because he's on the no lose really, isn't he? I mean, if he comes in and we finish fourth from bottom, he's one of the best managers in our lifetime. Whereas there's not a huge lot for him to do to be successful here. But if there's a relegation release clause in there, maybe there's a little seeded out there. Maybe
but he was close to coming when we were in the Championship, wasn't he? That was what he was do. So is he scared if we go down that? I mean, that Championship these days is dross, isn't it? So you'd like to think that even if we lose players, you'd only be there for a season. The standard in that.
Let's not worry about that yet. Let's think about what we've got ahead of us, because you're getting into a negative spin on the podcast before Christmas. Crikey!
He was going to come to us when we were a Championship club. So
he's had a few big jobs since then, though, hasn't he?
Yeah. So.
It is a big job. And again, I mean, I'm going to sort of try and finish on a positive with this. It's a massive job. Any team going into the Christmas spell, although it's not theoretically the same as the usual Boxing Day theory, any team then, it's a task. But then I'd point you in the direction of Eddie Howe at Newcastle. Newcastle were done. They were toast. Bit of money in January. Eddie Howe's proved a lot of people wrong. They've played good football. They've been solid. He's made Newcastle much better. He's got the best out of likes of Joe Linton, Almiron, who were players that we thought weren't good enough. He's got the potential out of them from a manager who we didn't think was elite. And now Newcastle are certainly looking at maybe a squeeze on the top 6 or 7. So if Wolves get that kind of bounce, I'm sure they'll be okay. Now, this may come back to bite me. I'm confident Wolves will stay up. I don't think it'll be breeze. I think there'll be pain on the way. But regardless, as long as Wolves finish 17th now, I think that's to be a successful season. And if that's with a trophy, let's have that as well. But joking aside, let's take 17th. Let's aim for that. But let's just focus on Everton now. Let's not, don't need to talk about the Championship just yet, boys. Let's all go to Everton. On the topic of Everton, I'm delighted to be covering the game, accompanying Mike Taylor on BBC WM to do the co-commentary there on the game on 95.6. So if you're not watching on TV or a stream somewhere, I hope you enjoy the game there. I cannot wait. So really looking forward to that trip with BBC WM on Boxing Day. We know the task for Lopetegui is huge.
He's allowed to plug himself, what's going on here now? He's just plugging his own brand on the podcast now.
It's funny that it's my podcast. I mean, I can't believe there's some self-praise going on.
We'll go. Then Knocker.
I don't think we've got left anyway, so he's going to hook us off for Mike Taylor and.
Anyway, enjoy your last show, lads. It's been an absolute pleasure. But moving on to the January transfer window, Matheus Cunha as well. We'll talk about him afterwards. But this has been a question that's been going around, the talk of like 4, 5, 6 signings. I wouldn't say it's a scattergun approach, and the more the merrier, but I would, as always, and I've always said this regardless, I would rather fewer signings of higher quality than multiple signings of squad players, because I think there's some okay squad players. I think there's key improvements that need to be made. Tyler, how many signings and in what positions do Wolves need to do in the January transfer window?
I said earlier, didn't I? I think Neves is the only one who's irreplaceable. I think you need another centre-half that is of a standard to take out one of Collins or Kilman. I didn't think I'd say that about Kilman, but he's another one that fell off a cliff. Right back's an obvious pain point. Centre mid, if we can get Traoré, Neves, Nunes, I'd like to think there's enough there. And I think striker minimum. plus another 2 maybe of creative type players. We just don't create any chances, do we? So you can argue, we can talk about Podence, Guedes, Hwang till we're blue in the face. They don't create enough chances. And they don't
we can say that now, Tyler. Sorry to jump in, but we don't know yet with this manager. That may change. Elite manager. I mean, I know it was only Gillingham, but Hwang's come on, won a penalty and set a goal up. Where's that Hwang been? We've seen things happening.
Podence and Adama stats have been tried for 3 years.
Yeah, I agree.
Before that, Neto's stats have been tried. So I'm not buying it. I just don't think they're good enough. You know, like I said, Podence looks neat and tidy, but you see other players in that position and, you know, they're blistering, aren't they, in this league, and he's not. So I think 5 or 6 is probably about right. And, yeah, if I had to, I'd go centre-back, right-back, striker, and maybe 2, you know, whether a number 10 or a wide player, two attractive forward players, wide players. So 5 I've mentioned.
Nokia, can you save us a bit of money and get to 4, or do you want 5 or 6 as well?
No, I'm exactly with Tyler. I think everything he said is where I am as well. I think definitely need a centre half, probably to dislodge Collins, because I think Collins is maybe bringing Kilman down. He's still a young man, so he's still developing his game. I think he will be a good centre half. I don't think he's had quite the effect we hope he would. Desperately need a central striker in. That'll be the biggest thing for me. We've got to get someone in who can score goals. And yeah, two attacking players to probably replace Podence and give us another option in that area. Midfield, I'm comfortable with. I've got no issues with the central midfield. I think, much as I love Moutinho, I think the time is now probably to put him out to pasture and go with the other 3 that we've got.
Now, I might be massively wrong on this, and I probably will be. I don't see Wolves signing a wide player, a wide and attacking forward, left or right. I really don't. I'll be happy to be wrong. I think it'll be a centre-back. I think it'll be a striker, which I'm going to talk about in a minute because it looks like that's very close. And I think right back as well. We talked about Wan-Bissaka. Let's just have a little chat about Wan-Bissaka. I personally think that will be a fantastic signing. I watched bits of Man United last night, and you know what? That looked like a guy that was considerably better than what Wolves have got now. Nocky.
Yeah, I saw him at Palace. I thought he was phenomenal at Palace. I think he's done well at Man United in a side that's been struggling for what's to their normal standards. He'd be great for us. I think he'd solve a lot of problems down that right-hand side, not just in a defensive area as well, I think, going forward, because he's probably more intelligent than Johnny and Semedo in those attacking areas, and I think he'd allow...
He got an assist last night, didn't he?
Yeah, well, he's not... He did predominantly get a lot of assists and a lot of great chances, but he does hold that area well and create space for the others to play through him, so I think it'd be a phenomenal signing for us if we can get that one over the line.
So on your point, right, sorry to put in, so you'd be happy, just so I'm clear, I'm going to write this down and you can sign it, you'd be happy going for the rest of the season with Guedes, Hwang, Podence as your options, with Adama, who sometimes looks all right and other times isn't interested. You're happy with those being your creative players for the rest of the season?
Just for legal purposes, before I speak to my in-house Wolves Report solicitor, at no point did I say I was happy. I said that I don't think Wolves will...
He's not going to be happy, mate.
Oh, no. Well, do you know what? I don't think they will. I'll be delighted to be wrong. And I think a centre forward makes a lot of difference in the system. And I do think, we'll talk about him in a minute, I do think a new forward who's different to what we've got now will make all the difference, because we're kind of used to a centre forward that's coming deep, that doesn't really get in behind. When we've got somebody that can potentially press, that can left foot, right foot, and get in behind, I think it changes the whole dynamic, and it takes the pressure off those left and right. Would I be happy with the forwards that you mentioned for the rest of the season? No. Do I think it will be those? Yes. But we shall see. I'll be delighted to be wrong. Me personally, a new striker coming in is an absolute must. A centre-back with experience, if it's Felipe or someone else, someone who's been there, done it, a big mouth, experienced pro, does the horrible stuff great, but also keeps it neat and tidy. Centre-back, if Wan-Bissaka comes, those 3 would be a bare minimum for me. I think Wolves will go more. There was a few people have mentioned that Wolves were scouting. I think it was mentioned that scouting the Championship. I can't sort of scratch it down to who I think it is, but there's some good young centre midfielders in the Championship, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if an up and coming footballing centre midfielder with a bit of legs on him comes to Wolves in the window. I'm not saying it'll definitely happen, but with the noisy, why would Wolves say they're looking at the Championship? Why would they disclose that? So I feel like there'll be an up and coming midfielder there, because, as you guys, I think, will both agree, Boubacar, Matheus, Nunes and Neves. That's your trio, isn't it, really? If we're playing three midfield, I don't think we can get any better than that. But Moutinho can probably only partially do the Neves job. I don't want him left or right. Hodge, I think he's a very good backup, but he's probably not quite as box-to-box and as dynamic as Boubacar and as Nunes. But so I think we need one more in there. If you're playing with a three and it's now a pressing three with high energy, three bodies isn't going to be enough. So I'd like to see maybe another player in there that can fill those space left or right with some legs. So, yeah.
You got Joe Hodge who can play there. There's talk of Isco as well. I think that'd be a great sign if we could get him.
Well, that would be, for me, I mean, that to me would feel like a second coming of our Moutinho signing when he came in for those 2 years at the twilight, and we had mainly two magical years in Moutinho when you're like, wow, this guy can play football. Isco is 2 years younger than when Moutinho signed. More of an attacking mid, bit more flair about him, more of a goal threat, but someone that can play centre midfield as well. In no position are a club like Wolves in any position to turn down someone like Isco. If he can come to Wolverhampton Wanderers via Lopetegui, I'm taking him. People are talking for snotters in midfield. Yes, we might need snotters, but quality wins football games as well as tackles. So if Isco can come, boys,
it's fantastic. It's an obvious upgrade on all the four players that I just mentioned. It's not even close. So why are you even debating it? Wan-Bissaka, there was Wolves fans turning the nose up at that. It's an obvious upgrade on the two we've got at the moment. You're stupid. If the opportunity arises, you've got to take them.
Absolutely. So we're all agreeing forward. We're all agreeing a centre back. We're all agreeing a right back. We'd like attacking wide players or narrow forwards. I think we all agree on that. Centre midfield hasn't really been mentioned, but I'm sure you guys will agree. If we are playing now with more energy and the ability now, the need to press and squeeze teams, you can't play with the same three players every week. They're going to get booked. They're going to get injured. There's going to be knocks 2 games a week. So I think we need one more set of legs in there. And if that's an up and coming young player from the Championship, I'm absolutely taking that. So I'm excited. As a few people have said, it's going to be an exciting January. I think it is. But the one bit of business that looks like it's almost done, I've got nothing other than what's been sort of tweeted out from people, is the Atletico Madrid forward, Matheus Cunha. Now, completely different to what we've got now. I mean, we're going to joke about similar stats in terms of goal scoring because we don't score many goals. He's not scored many goals, but this is someone a little bit different that can get in behind the centre-backs. He's got pace. He score goals with his left foot. He score goals with his right foot. He doesn't have a favoured side. He can score with both. He's played for Brazil. Obviously, he's at Atletico Madrid. Obviously, he's got João Felix there. So he's got quite a bit of competition. I think Morata's there as well. So in terms of his competition for a place, he's probably down the pecking order from 2 very good forwards. But, Nocky, what's your take on Matheus Cunha and if we can get him?
He looks thrilled.
I mean, I was underwhelmed originally, and then obviously Chris raised the point that he's got similar stats to when we signed Raul, which I think is a really good point to make. I know we were talking about not bringing in a wide attacker, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's pushed into that position and another striker comes in, because I think he can play there.
Oh, hello.
Left foot, right foot. Or are we going to look at maybe a 2 with him in there? I don't know, but he's something fresh. He's something different. I would like someone who almost guarantees you goals. He doesn't quite do that. But there's also talk that Man United came in 80 million for him at the end of last season and were turned down. So there's obviously clubs who see something in him. And he is a talented lad. And, if he comes in, I'll absolutely back him and I'll be delighted. But I think the thing that's really interesting is apparently it's 40 to 50 million euros. And even if we go down, that obligation still kicks in. So I think that's a really interesting deal. The Wolves have still got that ambition regardless of where we are. But we need something different. We need something fresh. Costa and Raul, very similar. Neither of them look like they're going to get us a lot of goals this season, so maybe he comes in, hits the ground running, and bang, he gets us up the league.
Well, he looks like someone that could play off a centre forward, but maybe someone that could be there for the flick-ons and knockdowns. But there was a really good tweet from someone that I've seen on Twitter recently, Football Appreciation. He said regarding Matheus Cunha's stats and numbers look average. If you look under the hood, he's non-pen XG and AG, so he's I know you guys love this. So he expected goals and assists. Well, let me just run you through the numbers, and then you just mute yourselves, and I'll talk. So
yeah, everyone's just going to go and make a cup of tea now, mate. So you crack on.
Yeah, thanks for ruining the moment. But anyway, the only person that beats him out of he's put some really interesting numbers. Yotta over the last 5 seasons, expected assists and a goal per game, 0.66. He then becomes 0.55, and he's ahead of Guedes and Adama, which you'd expect on 0.29. But he's also ahead of Richarlison and Jimenez, both on 0.47. I know you guys don't like the stats and the detail of that. I love it. So if to me, I was concerned. Now, I think Zaha's a great player that scores and assists. He's 0.36 per game. So if this guy hits the road at 0.55, being involved in a goal every 2 games, I'm all over that, boys. So I hope you enjoyed those deep in. Look at your face; it's disgusting with me. I do apologise. I can't help it, but
I think I'm just behind Guedes.
We're not far. Not far. So you've got the same appearance, same man of the matches at Molineux as Guedes, haven't you? So it comes with a good pedigree. Obviously, Atletico Madrid, they don't sign rubbish footballers. Previously at Berlin, then at Leipzig. Come from Sion originally. He'd gone for 15 million, 18 million, 30 million. This is potentially rumoured to be around 40 million. We're all YouTube scouts. We've watched his goals. For me, he's completely different to what we've got now. Now, I think his stats are distorted somewhat because he's mainly been a sub over like this season and last season as well. I've thought for a long time I'd love to see pace down the middle. I know we've talked about Adama going down there as something different or someone else through the middle. This is someone now that a simple ball over the top or a clearance, there's a threat. There's no threat with Jimenez in behind or Costa in behind, really. If most Premier League teams play a high line, so would this then enable someone like Matheus Cunha, enable Wolves for a start to press with someone that's got an engine up front and to take the pressure off and bring in more the likes of Adama and Podence and potentially Guedes if he doesn't go, Tyler?
What was that, sorry? Yeah, definitely. I mean, it just shows the shortcomings. How can we be a Premier League football club and not have a striker that can run? We've basically got the 2 slowest centre forwards you've ever seen. How do you get in that situation? So, like you said, it's a breath of fresh air to have someone that can press. Not to mention Man U were looking at him. I've heard that Arsenal were looking at him after Jesus. He's obviously been ruled out for a pod. Those clubs don't look at players like that if the kid hasn't got something about him. I think it's a bit of a gamble, like Knocker says. There's no track record of 30, 40 goals a season, but who does have that these days? The game's changed, hasn't it?
So were his similar stats to Jimenez when he came in? I know you both mentioned that. Sub kind of player, needs regular football.
Yeah, never quite settled anywhere. Jimenez found his home. Let's hope this guy does. But to answer your question, yes, it should totally change the dynamic of the way we can play. And that's why Guedes gets a lot of stick, but I don't know why, whether it's blind faith. I still think there's a player in there. And I think a player like him then brings out the best in the other players because you're on the front foot, you're pressing. There's someone there when they look up, and if you whip a ball, even Tuesday, we talked about the balls being whipped in and no one being there because we've got 2 elephant donkeys up top, haven't we, basically? So I think he could spark someone like, well, I shouldn't have said elephant, should I? No offence to you, Knock, but I think there's 2, there's genuine.
Merry Christmas.
I'm not ruling Guedes out yet because I think he's the sort of player that could link up with someone like this, and he's exactly what we need. Like you said, press, full front, on the front foot. If he can get us half a dozen goals, we'll probably take that, won't we, between now and the end of the season?
Absolutely. I think it's a really good point. And we saw quite a bit. I mean, it's against Gillingham, so you can't overjudge it. But I love the way that as soon as Wolves lost the ball, there was a measured press. It just wasn't one bloke running after it. There was 2 or 3 squeezing the place. Wolves will recover the ball, start with the centre-back, back to Neves, and repeat the process. And there was patience, not too much panic, but that desire to go and win the ball high up the pitch is something that we've been crying out for ages. But I think you can only, the old saying goes, you defend from the front, and now you've got someone who's got an engine with pace that can press, that can frighten defenders. Because, I mean, Costas hasn't got the pace. Great football hasn't got the pace. Jimenez doesn't seem to have the legs of what he used to have. But now you've got someone. If you make a mistake, you're not going to catch him up. So for me, this is exciting. This is the team defending from the front. I mean, debut at Villa is potentially a nightmare or an absolute dream come true for him. So hopefully we'll see more of that.
If you've got him pressing, you've then got the legs of Nunes and Boubacar who can press. You've then got Guedes, who, yes, hasn't shown us his ability, but he's obviously quick, he can press, he's fit. Before you know it, like you said, you've got 3 or 4 players that can do that, whereas we haven't had that. Even when we were brilliant under Nuno, we never had that, did we? So it's a big change in what we've done before, but hopefully it'll pay off.
Absolutely. So we say it's a gamble, boys, but isn't this a show of confidence that Wolves are prepared to commit to a 40 million signing at bottom of the league? The manager must believe, the club must believe, and if Wolves are signing a player that was linked to Man United and Arsenal, he must believe as well. So hopefully there's a good sales pitch there. We had the first like of the show there as well, so I'm glad someone else has liked that. So yeah, thank you very much, whoever that was.
I think he was just liking the fact that you'd stopped talking about XG, to be honest.
Oh, don't be like that, son. Don't be like that. Merry Christmas. So let's take a few questions. Earlier in the week, I put a tweet out, as our usual policy is, we get some tweets out, fire some questions in. Let's have a little look. Paul Nichols, thank you for your question, Paul. How incredibly massive is January for us as a club? And a Merry Christmas to the Wolves Report team. It's been a pleasure to tune and listen. Thank you for your support, Paul. How incredibly massive is January for us as a club? Nocky.
I think we've kind of covered it, haven't we? It's ginormous. If we get it right, we can stay up. If we get it wrong, it's Championship. So it's the biggest window we've had since we've been back in the division. So it's absolutely ginormous for it. I think the key to it is move early, get the players in as quickly as you possibly can, because there's no room for error. Everyone we sign has to work, and that's probably why my concerns around Matheus Cunha are. It has to work. He has to come in. He has to score 6 or 7 goals. If he doesn't, we'll probably go down.
Thank you, Nocky, and thank you, Paul, for your question. Ted, again, a regular supporter of the show. This one's for you, Tyler. I think we've mentioned this a bit already. Given that Wolves cannot field any new signings until realistically mid-January, maybe early January if they come into a Villa, to what effect would bad defeats between now and then be? Tyler?
Yeah, I think we talked about it, didn't we? I think if we don't pick up points from the next 3 on with Knocker, I think it's game over. You've got to. You can't keep not winning games.
Yeah, we need something. We need something, don't we?
You don't play half a season, nearly half a season, winning 2 all season, to then winning 5 or 6 on the spin. That just doesn't happen. So the games, I'd say now, are more crucial than when we even have the signings, because we need to keep. That gap can't get any bigger than what it is now. So I think it's massive, to answer Ted's question. And hopefully we'll have Cunha for Villa if he signs. Obviously, no Wolves, who knows? Who knows if he signs? But yeah, he's right. The games are coming thick and fast, aren't they? And bad defeats, could end it, I think.
Absolutely. Thank you for your contribution and support as always, Ted. Next question. I think we might have covered this as well, but I want to get the questions on. Gary Winslow asks, Cunha fee seems high for a player that's not been prolific, played too much, seems odd without possible relegation. Last chance saloon or equality in addition to the Yotta mould? Nocky.
Yeah, we've covered it, haven't we? I think he is high. It's a high price, but if it works, it's an absolute bargain, isn't it? I mean, we all laughed at Jota when he went to Liverpool for 45 million and he couldn't get in our team, and yet when he's fit, he's absolutely
a fresh start often means it's what players need. It's just life. People need a change of scenery, whether it's football or in normal life. Sometimes a change of scenery can kickstart somebody.
Well, he's going to come to a club where he's loved, isn't he? I mean, he's going to come to a club where the fans are going to instantly get behind him. They're going to believe in him. They love a striker at his football club. So when he comes on the pitch and the fans are singing his name and backing him, then you could see something really special happen. And 40 million seems high. Is it that high in this day and age for a striker in the top flight? Probably not. So if he comes in and he gets us 6 to 8 goals, I think he's worth every penny of it.
One thing I want to jump in as well. I'm actually going to bring this up. I'm going to jump into this question as well. Thanks for your question, Gary. Chris F asks, where will the goals come from? Cunha seems like a complementary player rather than a starter. Do Wolves need another 9? I think you mentioned that, Tyler, about signing another striker. Tyler?
Yeah, I think it was Knocker who said it, and so I would take his credit. Knocker sort of mentioned about it maybe shifting either side or in behind. I think it depends, doesn't it? Obviously, Costa hasn't probably worked out as we'd have liked, but we knew it was a stopgap. If Jimenez were to leave, which I think we think he might do, you'd argue we do need another 9. we're going to be where we were before. Otherwise, aren't we? We're going to have limited options, and if this guy gets injured or his form drops, there's still no options. But I don't see us signing another 9. I don't think you spend 40 million and then you go and spend another 25, 30 million, do you? So I think it's just going to be him, myself. Hwang has played there, hasn't he? I mean,
did all right at Leeds the first game.
He did. So
did well in the World Cup.
I think ideally, Chris, I think you're right. If we were starting the season, you'd want Cunha and one other. It's just the others we've got aren't up to it, are they? Let's be honest. So
there is another option. Fabio comes back.
I was about to jump onto that.
He's fell off the cliff, though, hasn't he? Apparently, they're saying his form's dropped.
Well, he hit the ground running when he got there, though, didn't he? And if he has that same effect for us, and suddenly we've got 2 fresh faces up front, it's going to cost us a bit of money to bring him back.
I'd take him over the 2 we've got.
That was the next question. Are we taking Fabio Silva over Jimenez and Costa?
Well, he scored more goals this season. I know the league's not as strong, but he seems to be scoring goals and decent.
And you know what? They were good finishes as well. He's done some nice assists and nice finishes. And a finish is a finish at any level.
If you play the front press, which you mentioned, then yes, it's a no-brainer because those 2 can't do it. So if that's the way he wants to play, it's a no-brainer. I've read articles today that his confidence is low. He's questioning himself again. Who knows what you read? But to answer your question, I'd have him and Cunha over Jimenez and Costa all day long,
It certainly will add more legs and energy, and I think those 2 being quite young and more mobile would certainly add to the pressing style than what we're doing now. I don't see Wolves playing with the 2 unless they're chasing the game. Be delighted to be wrong. I don't think he really plays with the 2. I think it's more of a 4-3-3 over more of a 4-2-3-1 from what he's done in the past. But again, I'll be delighted to be wrong. Knocky?
Yeah, I think you've got to look at what we've done so far has led us to the bottom of the league, hasn't it? So we have to do something different. If that means bringing Fabio back and giving him a fresh start, if it means changing the way we play things, let's do it. If you keep doing the same thing, you're going to keep getting the same results, aren't you, regardless of who the manager is, because we know the quality's not there. So I think I wouldn't be against bringing Fabio back. It will cost us a bit of money, but as I said, it's going to cost a lot more than relegation. So if he comes back, he's another option. My suspicion is Jimenez is going to go in this window. I think he'll try and offset some of the payments with him. I still think we can get a little bit of cash. I think Semedo as well will bring in a bit of revenue for us if we were to get rid of him. If Wan-Bissaka comes in, we're not going to carry 3. For me, I think he'll go. So I think although we'll make signs, we'll offset a lot of those costs. So Fabio coming back for Raul, I'd argue that if they both played every game between now and the end of the season, Fabio probably finishes on more goals from me in current form.
Well, I'd say Fabio probably suits a style of play in terms of his ability to press because he's young. He has got a good engine on him. So Chris F, thank you for your question, which creates some really good debate. Thank you everybody for the questions. Again, important part of the live show. We've done 57 minutes so far. It's flown by listening to episode 47 of the Wolves Report with Mark Knott, Chris Tyler, and myself, Ryan Lester. Let's move on now to the Everton game. We've done the questions. Now, I think we're pretty much in agreement of what we're going to do. But starting off with you, Knocky, what's your team? And I think we're pretty much all going to be on the same place. What's your team for? We had some interesting debates in the group chat earlier on about this. But what's your team for Everton on Boxing Day?
It'd be 4-3-3. I think the back line probably picks itself because we haven't got a lot of other options. I think Semedo will start right back. Bueno starts left back, Collins and Kilman. If they're all fit, I would go Boubacar, Neves, Nunes, and then I would go... It's a toss of a coin between the 2 in central striker, Costa or Raul. I maybe go Raul because he scored a goal against Gillingham, even though it was a penalty, he still put the ball in the net. And then I'd start Adama right and I'd start Hwang left. And I didn't think I'd say that, but I think
me neither.
I think he's earned his shirt based on the performance against Gillingham.
Tyler.
I can't do this anymore.
Tyler's going to say he wants Hwang to start and he can't believe what he's saying.
I was questioning you 2 earlier because I think you've been on the mulled wine for breakfast, but Hwang, the jury's still out for me. I personally don't think we can start either Jimenez or Costa. I just don't think they're mobile enough. I don't think they offer enough, and I don't think they're what Lopetegui's looking for. I threw the curveball in, didn't I, of going Adama, Podence and Guedes as your front 3. And I know there's not much form in there and there's nothing to base it on, but I think it's just the fact they can press, they're more mobile. that's the only reason I've gone for them.
He's not going to do it, though, is he? He's not going to do that.
Yeah, but if we're banking on Huang, who we've all been laughing at for 18 months, then that shows how much we're struggling.
But let's not forget here, guys. Okay, now this is an elite manager. This is going to be a new style of play. We're not going to be turning to a completely different team, but if we're playing a high press, that should suit the more athletic players like Traore, like Huang, people with more pace and ability and an engine. That should suit them. So if you're playing to players' strengths, you're going to get the best out of them. Just a quick drop in from my dad, Big Daddy Lester, about the midfield. I think we all agree on this now, and I don't want to be overcritical, but Dave Lester says Matinho can't start Monday. Been a great servant, but we can't go with him in the team anymore. The only place I want to see Matinho is if Neves isn't playing and he's sitting as the pivot, tidying the ball up left and right, not over expecting him to run a lot. I don't want to see him left or right of a three, because as much as, I mean, and we talked about this in the week, Tyler, he wasn't particularly great on the ball. He was when he sat for a little while with Neves, he was better than he was, and he was wide of a three. It just, you're playing him in a position when you're exposing him for his weakest attribute, and that's his engine. So he's easier to get past now. I mean, up close, he's combative and wins the ball well, but left or wide of a three, I think playing him against Iwobi in the midfield, I think you're asking for trouble in terms of mobility.
Unfortunately, it's probably one of the best I've seen at Wolves, but he's behind Hodge now for me in the pecking order of the way we want to play and get on the front foot. I think he's fell that far down. Just not his wrongdoing. He just hasn't got the mobility that, because Neves hasn't got the mobility either. You can't afford to have two in there that can't run. So for me, I totally agree with you, old man. He's not in my first 11.
Absolutely. I mean, if Boubacar isn't fit, is it 4-3-3 with Joe Hodge in the midfield? Is that what we're going to go with? So will we have Hodge right of Neves? Would go Matheus Cunha on the left. Would that be a midfield three? Is he going to be confident enough to do that over playing Matinho with his experience and who he is? Are we prepared to play Hodge?
I think Everton are garbage, but they do have runners and legs in midfield. If you lose that battle, for me, a bit like Palace away. I think if you lose that battle in there, I don't think we get anything from the game. So I'm going up for Hodge for his ability to get around the pitch, to keep it simple. I'd personally go for him myself.
Absolutely. I think we're all sort of, as you mentioned earlier on, we're surprisingly agreed that we probably want more mobility and directness up front in terms of Huang on the left-hand side, Adama on the right, and probably for me, it'd be Costa through the middle. I know Jimenez scored. Jimenez couldn't start for Mexico in the World Cup. It just didn't have the legs for that. I'd rather start Costa, that's probably got a game on him if needed, rather than Jimenez that we don't know if he's going to have to make a half-time sub. So for me, it's 4-3-3. I'm surprised I'm saying I want Huang to start, but if you come on as a sub, you win a penalty and you put an assist in, you've earned your chance, because Podence didn't do anything, Geddes didn't do anything, and I know it's not great, Tyler, but if you come on as a sub, you create a goal and you score and you win a penalty, you've done your job.
Well, it wasn't a penalty, was it? Let's not give him credit for winning the penalty. He's passed the ball 3 yards, and so depends how you want to look at it. Do you know what I mean? You can always dress up stats, can't you? I thought Guedes had a good game. Was it Brighton at home? He scored. I thought he looked lively. As I said, I'm not saying I'm right and you're wrong. I just really struggle with a front line that's got Huang and Costa in it. That's just my opinion. But
absolutely, all about opinions, and that's why we're here to get it off on our chest and do some group therapy. That is the Wolves report. We're at that time of the show. It's prediction time, so we'll continue with Mr. Positive and Mr. Festive himself, Chris Tyler. Please give me your first scorer and score prediction for Everton v Wolves.
I don't know. I just hope we can shit house a 1-0 win.
Merry Christmas.
And I'll go for Neves.
So are you saying 1-0 Neves? Excellent. Yeah. Knocker, let's go.
I'm going to say a Wolves win because I think we have to win. So I'm going to go 2-0 and I'll go with Huang.
Oh my! It's incredible. Just to let you know, it hasn't been the Wolves Report day out Christmas drinking special today, but I'm going to make it a hat trick. I can't come on and say Wolves are going to lose or draw. You have to believe. I believe in the new manager. I believe he'll get some out of Wolves, and I'm going to go with Nokia as well. And I think it will be Everton 0, Wolves 2. I'm going to go with Diego Costa opening the scoring, diving into the away end after his opening goal and getting a booking. This has been episode 47 of the Wolves Report. Thank you to our two loyal midfield generals in the form of Nocky and to Tyler. Hopefully we'll join you again sometime between Christmas and New Year if I can find two sober people to join me and a sober host. Merry Christmas. Thank you for your support over the last year and season. Hopefully it's a Merry Christmas to you all, for whatever Christmas is to you, and up the Wolves.